Welcome into this special bye-week edition of the Officialize Experience. As always, I am Kyle Schonewill, and I'm joined by Kirk Cousins. And today is special. We wanted to give a salute right off the bat to all the veterans out there. We're grateful for what you do. Because of you fighting for our freedom, we get to sit here and talk football. So it's pretty cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Huge thank you to our veterans. I always tell people, I tell soldiers when I see them, many of them are obviously NFL fans, and I say, I get to live a dream. I get to live in this country and live out the dream that I had as a child playing football in the NFL. The only reason I get to do it is because people like you are out there protecting our freedoms, preserving that which we have in this country, and I owe a great deal to them. And so I always say thank you and acknowledge that, guys, I'm living a dream come true because of you, and I don't take that for granted, and you are not forgotten about. You are greatly appreciated, and thank you. And I don't think we can say it enough.
Absolutely. Thank you to them. A little housekeeping before we get started. As always, you can find this podcast called The Officialize Experience on officialize.com. A few hours after that, it's up on all other places podcasts are found. But maybe you don't know that there's actually a video portion to this podcast. So if you want to see a little bit of the behind the scenes or just check our reactions to things, you can check out the video on officialize.com or on YouTube. So look for that. As always, we appreciate you writing in. We like being able to chime in with you guys. So tweet us or post about it on Instagram. I am Kyle Schonewill on both. Kirk is Kirk Cousins 8 on Twitter and Kirk.Cousins on Instagram. But use the hashtag #AskKirk so I can find them easier and we can choose a couple questions to talk about. So, Kirk, anyways, now that that's over with, how was your bye week? Did you get some rest? Did you get some sunshine? Are you feeling good? Ready to go?
We did get rest. That was good. We came in on Wednesday to the facility, got some work in, and then I flew down to Atlanta where my wife and my son and my in-laws were, and we got to spend some time together as a family, which was good. Got a little warmer weather. It wasn't too much warmer, but
not tropical.
Not tropical, but it was just good to get a change of scenery, I guess, if you will, and had a smooth trip back on Sunday and got back to work this morning. So we're ready for a big one this week against the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, when you're an NFL quarterback that doesn't have to play, what's it like sitting around watching other quarterbacks play?
I was watching the games with my father-in-law and with Julie, and I kept commenting to them how strange I felt. I didn't like it. It was odd. I felt like I should be playing. I felt like I needed to be doing something. I kept wanting to get up and walk around and do something because I felt out of place. And then it's just so hard for me to watch football as a fan. I feel like those days are over for me. Maybe when I'm done playing, I'll get that back. But I watch it with a trained eye and like a student or like a scout trying to study and pick things up. And I can't just watch it for the joy of watching it. So I miss that, but enjoyed watching the games, and I think I did pick up quite a bit.
So as you're watching, are you able to like pick up some plays from other teams, or is it kind of like you can't tell what's happening?
Yeah, you get ideas, and the bye week is all about self-scout. You take that time as coaches more than players to go back and look at what have we done well, what do we need to improve on, are there any things we're doing statistically that our opponent will look at as giveaways to know what's coming. And so we try to look at all those stats and see what we've done well and what we need to improve upon. And you also then take that time to look around the league and say, hey, what are other people doing really well and what can we copy? And I've learned this is a copycat league. We all are trying to take the best from what other people are doing and apply it to our own game. So there's certainly an element of that through the bye week and then watching on Sunday. And it's hard because you want to be your own man, play the game your way, but you also want to learn from the best. And I think you try to do both.
There's no shame in that. That happens in every industry. You can look at something and say, hey, I want a little bit of that and add that in. There's no shame in stealing a Sean McVay play. Here and there.
It's a balance. You try to steal some or take some, and then you try to say, hey, you know what? Who I am and what I've done has been pretty good and got me to this point. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. So as long as you find that right balance, I think you can have good success.
So what stood out to you then while you're watching? Any throws, any plays, any players that was abnormally impressive?
I was impressed on Thursday night. I think it was the very first play of the game for the Steelers offense. Ben Roethlisberger goes to throw a short pass in the flat, and as he's making the throw, he feels the corner and the safety not covering Juju Smith-Schuster down the sideline, and he reholsters, brings the ball back, and then makes the throw down the sideline. Perfect throw for a touchdown. Obviously, Juju has the speed to then finish the play for a touchdown. But that ability to reholster and to plan to be throwing somewhere else quickly off the snap of the ball and on the fly, pull it back, adjust, and then hit the guy in stride, that's why he's Big Ben. That's an elite trait. And that's the kind of thing I watch and I say, how many times have I done that this year? And maybe that's an element of my game I've got to continue to improve, where if someone else is wide open, do I have the ability to pull the ball back, reset my feet, and throw it with accuracy and still be on time and not be late? I think I can do that, but you watch a guy like Big Ben and you say, man, he seems to do it every week. That's quite an element of his game that I'd love to add to mine. So things like that you pick up. And then just watching the Rams offense yesterday afternoon, and I've noticed a little bit I've watched on the weekends we've been playing and come home and watch them play, just how smooth they are throughout the game. I mean, it's first quarter through the fourth. It's up and down the field. It's running the ball. It's screens. It's play action. It's drop back. It's third downs. It's first and second down. It's a red zone offense. It's backed up. It's just fun to watch. It's a great example of when everything's working on all cylinders. They have good coaching. They have players who are executing the plays well. They have attention to detail. They have skill at a lot of positions, but that skill is also running the plays correctly, and they're locked in, and they're honing in on snap counts and audibles and hand signals. And it's just fun to watch when they're rolling, to see that, hey, they're not reinventing football. These aren't plays that no one else is running. Sure, they're well designed and they're good formations, but a lot of the plays I can call out and say, hey, those are plays they ran last week too. But they're just run well. And when you protect well and when you get separation and man coverage and when your quarterback throws with accuracy, there's production to be had. And so I think it was just an interesting case study watching them yesterday.
On the broadcast, they talked about that a lot, actually. They were kind of pointing out how, a lot of these formations are similar. A lot of the plays are repeated. They're not doing anything that's like life-changing, but they're just doing it really well. They get into a look and they run a stretch run left, and then out of that same look, they'll run a jet sweep coming back the other way, and then they'll run a play-action pass out of that same look. They're not doing anything crazy, but the execution is so perfect. So they really agreed with your assessment on the television there.
Yeah, and like the touchdown pass that Goff threw to the tight end, good play design, but the safety is recovering, and if the ball's thrown to his inside, maybe the safety breaks it up, but the ball's thrown perfectly on his outside shoulder, and so the combination of good play design with good execution, an accurate throw, and a tight window leads to a touchdown. And it's just great to see that you don't have to have these perfect plays or these magic plays that trick the defense. What you have to do is have good plays that are then executed really, really well, not just by one or two guys, but by all 11. And then to do it play after play after play. And when you do that, you start to become a top 5 offense. And that's where we're trying to be at the end of the year.
So with the Vikings not playing yesterday, I had a chance to watch the NFL without the stress of being a fan yesterday. And here was my takeaway. We talk about this a lot, but what makes the NFL so great? It's the parity. It's crazy to me. Let me give you some examples real quick. I just don't think you see the parity in other sports like this. In college football, okay, if you're the best team and you compete and you win a championship, then you get better players on your team. More players want to play for you. You get more coverage on the national television spotlight. So more guys go, and therefore you can get better the following year. The NFL is literally set up for all the best teams to get worse. Think about like the Eagles, for example. You win the Super Bowl, right? You go from all of a sudden being the hunter to the hunted. Your best coaches are poached by other teams and take jobs elsewhere. Some of your players that you can't afford get paid huge contracts by other teams because they want Super Bowl players on their team. So you lose some of your better players. You then have to play the 2 other first place teams in your conference as you're out of like schedule games, if you will. And you get the last draft pick in the league. So literally the entire league is set up for you to go from the best to back down to the pack. And like, so what ends up happening is like my takeaway is you end up seeing the Titans beating the Patriots yesterday. The Lions beat the Patriots this year. The Browns beat the Falcons. The Bills beat you guys. It's just, it's crazy. Anything can happen. And that's my takeaway is like literally anything can happen. Well,
it's so different from college football. I used to be a college football fan growing up, and I used to say I like it more in the NFL because at least I know what should happen. In the NFL, there is no expectation. I mean, anybody can beat anybody. And so I don't even know what to expect. Whereas in college football, you had upsets. You have a wow, I can't believe that this team took them to the fourth quarter. They never should have been able to do that. In pro football, every team should be able to take everybody to the fourth quarter. But they're also, I say, with what you said about how hard it is to sustain success, then you look back and say, how impressive is what the Patriots have done over the last 20 years when you think about how hard it is to have sustained success when assistant coaches are leaving, players are changing. And it's been a revolving door around Tom Brady. I would say at the offensive line, receiver position, running back position, they've always had good players, but it has been a bit of a revolving door, and yet they've had sustained success year after year after year. And I think that's the goal. You may not win the Super Bowl every single year. The odds are not in your favor to do that. But if you can become an organization or be part of an organization where there's sustained excellence year after year after year, you're doing something right, and you enter a very elite category at that point. And I think that's what I want to be a part of, and everybody here at the Vikings facility is trying to establish and continue in, because when you start to look around and say, hey, man, we've had sustained success for several years in a row now, you enter some elite categories.
So I know you don't like to do this. I know you don't like to project forward. Okay. It's a 1 week at a time thing. But for you guys, obviously you're entering a crazy stretch here. We're talking 3 primetime games in a row, the 4th toughest schedule remaining. But just like we said, anything can happen. Regarding the wild card yesterday, I would think that the Eagles, Falcons, and Seahawks losing helps your case. And then a reminder to fans, what's interesting about this season is that the tie you guys have is going to be the tiebreaker in any scenario. So, for example, if you get in at 9-6-1, you'll be the playoff team over any 9-7 team. Talk to me about this upcoming stretch, specifically with the Bears and the Packers, and how it could just define the season.
Well, Coach Zimmer came to us after our Thursday game against the Rams. I believe we were 1-2-1. And he projected out and said, guys, we have 5 games between now and the bye week. He said, I think we have a good football team, but these 5 games will set the stage and write the story. And we went 4-1 in that stretch. And here we are now at the end of that stretch, having gone 4-1 when Coach Zimmer said this was very important. Got to the bye, and before we left for the bye, Coach Zimmer said, guys, we have now a 4-game stretch. We've put ourselves in a position where now this next 4-game stretch really tells the story and starts to paint the picture for the second half of the season. And because of going 4-1 in that 5-game stretch, we've put ourselves in a position now to be playing on Sunday Night Football twice in a row and to be competing for everything we wanted to have at the start of the season. So we see it as a 4-game stretch here, obviously cliche-wise, 1 game at a time. That we have no reason to look past this game, but we understand that this is a crucial month for us. It'll be a tough month, and when we look back a month from now, it'll be really interesting to see how it all sorts out.
So you've had a chance this season to play a bunch of young quarterbacks. You know, you played Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen. As a young quarterback, now you're a veteran quarterback. That's kind of weird to think about, but you have a chance now to talk with them and kind of not mentor them, but you know, whether it's after a game or through a text or something, you have a chance to kind of mentor the young quarterbacks. When you were a young quarterback, what would you have liked to have heard from your, veterans in the league, you know?
Well, I think of all the opinions out there, and there's certainly some really bad ones, some really uninformed ones, and some really good ones, it may not be a better person to hear from than a veteran quarterback performing at a high level to come to you and give you feedback and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing when I watch tape, when I prepare for defenses and see you on the film going against that defense. Here's what I see. I mean, those are opinions that I would take very seriously and listen to. And so as a young player, man, I would have just loved to have heard, affirmation for the things I'm doing well. I would have loved to have heard a reminder of maybe how their story wasn't always perfect, how they faced adversity, how things didn't go their way all the time. So I could remember, hey, just because something doesn't go my way doesn't mean there aren't good days ahead. So when I see a young quarterback, whether it's in the offseason, an event, or just post-game quickly, I just like to encourage them, give them a word, give them a thought, and hopefully they can take it with them. But certainly, I'm far from where the level of some of these guys are in the league. But and some of these young guys, who knows, they may pass me by quickly. But the guys who are coming up who are high picks, they're high picks for a reason. They have a lot of ability, and I want to make sure they know that. And And as you take your lumps a little bit as a rookie, make sure they keep their confidence up and know that they can play.
Does that happen often around the league, or are guys so like hyper competitive that, I don't want to share any information with the young guys? I don't want them to take my job.
I don't know. Hard to say. I know that at the Pro Bowl, when you finally do get some extended time around other players, everybody seems to be really great. And coming here to the Vikings from Washington, all the guys here in the locker room right away were great guys and welcomed me and were very affirming and encouraging and gave me a place to stand. So I think that speaks well of the players around the league. And I think we're all so competitive and we all understand how hard it is that I do think there's a level of, yeah, sure, we're aware that we're all competing for certain spots, but at the same time, there's a mutual respect too, knowing that we're going through the same things just in different cities, and we're not immune to the struggles and we're not immune to some of those emotions that come with the challenges of playing in this league.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to breaking down the Bears game a little bit, I want to do the Ask Kirk questions that were on Twitter. Okay, so Josh Heinrich asked us this week, what is your favorite Pizza Ranch order? And he says his is stuffed crust with beef, mushrooms, green peppers, and olives.
All right, I can answer that question easily. Cactus spread's the best item in the place.
Absolutely.
It's the best item. You can't get cactus spread just anywhere, so that sets
now,
it apart.
Blueberry or any other, or just straight cactus spread?
Well, they've done a really good job of mixing it up. The original is hard to beat, but blueberry is obviously very good. And then in the fall, they come out with like a pumpkin flavor that this time of year is just perfect. So it's hard to turn down any cactus spread. All cactus spread is good cactus spread by me. But that being said, I do love the stuffed crust. I think they've implemented that only recently, and that's become my favorite when I go down the line of pizzas. Stuffed crust is my favorite. As far as toppings, I don't know that I could agree with him on some of those toppings, but if it's got stuffed crust, it's for me. And then, I mean, the best part about...
I'm a straight pepperoni guy, but I know you also like chicken, right? You're kind of a chicken guy, aren't you?
That's my thing. Is I was going to say the best part about Pizza Ranch is that it doesn't end at pizza and cactus spread. It's fried chicken. I got mac and cheese. I got green beans. I got soup. I got a salad bar. I mean, that's what keeps That's what keeps the wife coming back. So, I mean, what's not to like?
Absolutely. Okay, I got one other question from Rhonda. What are the top 3 hardest hits you've ever taken? That seems to be a popular question. People want to know, when did you really get blown up?
Well, I always tell people playing in the NFL each Sunday is kind of like getting into a minor car accident every Sunday. And so those hits
there's a lot of them.
Those hits can be violent. But thankfully, they're changing the rules a little bit to protect quarterbacks, which I'm not complaining about. In college was the worst hit I ever took. Courtney Upshaw was a defensive end for Alabama. And I took a 7-step drop and was looking to my right in a bowl game. And he came around the edge in the left tackle. And I knew I was holding on to the ball a little too long. I could feel him coming, but I said, I'm going to stand in here and trust the protection. And he put his helmet right in the square of my back. And, I got hit and fumbled and just bad. And that was probably the one that stands out the most as just a wow hit. I also got hit in college. Kawan Short, who's now with the Panthers, on a quick game, played to my left. He hit me when we played Purdue, and I landed right on my left shoulder. And I remember that one was heavy when all of his weight and all of my weight came down on my left shoulder. That one didn't feel good. Fortunately, in the pros, it hasn't been too bad.
Maybe some of the Seahawks hits last year?
Yeah, there were a couple, man, where we ran a route over the middle of the Ryan Grant, and I had to throw it quickly. And as I threw it, the ball left my hand, and one of their, I think it was Jaron Reed, one of their nose guards, hits me and picks me up. Where literally, I'm at his mercy at this point, and I'm parallel with the ground. And it's that Ricky Bobby moment where he gets hit and the car goes up in the air, and he says in the headset, he goes, "I'm flying through the air. This is not good." That's how I feel when those guys hit me, and I'm in the air and they're on top of me. It's that like half-second moment where you're like, right now everything is good, but in a half a second, 600 pounds are coming down on me, and I am going to be in trouble. And I'm flying through the air. This is not good. And then
you're
on
fire, Ricky. You're on fire.
Yes.
No, I'm not. You're not on fire, Ricky.
And then you hit, and you kind of, for a second, like, look around and check, like, does anything hurt? Am I okay? Can I breathe? But there's now this rule that they can't land on us. I mean, that kind of helps protect it, because literally when they can bring their whole body weight down on you, you're just asking for an injury at that point.
Super underrated part of Kirk Cousins' game is he's so durable. Now I'm going to knock on wood, but
please,
I mean, really, you haven't. Yeah.
No comment.
You haven't been hurt much at all. Yeah,
Plead
no
the
comment.
fifth.
Yeah,
no comment. Nothing to say. Knock on wood.
Okay, so I got a chance to watch a little bit of the Bears yesterday. They look legit. I can't figure it out exactly, but I decided after watching the game to dive into a couple things, and there's a couple things that scare me. I don't want to scare you, okay? You already know this, but did you know that they lead the league at plus 13 turnover margin on defense? And I looked up their third overall in red zone, or I think it's third overall in third down percentage at 34%. So there's some things on defense that seem to be sustainable. What did you see when you watched them play the Lions yesterday?
Well, Coach Fangio, their defensive coordinator, is a coordinator I've always had a lot of respect for. I think it's a really good scheme. I think he gets the best out of his players and coaches them hard. I think that they had several young players over the last few years who have played a lot of football and are no longer young players. They're now seasoned veterans. I think of in their secondary in 2015, I think 3 or 4 of the players in their secondary were playing then are still playing for the Bears. And back then, people didn't know much of them. They were younger players who were playing because of injuries. They hadn't won a lot of games, but now those guys are starting on a really good team, but they've played now for several years. So I found that to be interesting. And then they've drafted well. I think Smith, the linebacker they drafted out of Georgia, is the real deal. I think Leonard Floyd, also out of Georgia, a pass rusher, is the real deal. Obviously, Khalil Mack's the real deal. Akeem Hicks. I've always thought Aaron Lynch is a great player. So when you start to add a good scheme and good coaches with good players who have now become veterans, you start to get the recipe for having a lot of success. And once again, turnovers are going to be important because if they can force turnovers, they've shown they'll win. If you can protect the football, now I think you put yourself in a position to make it a really interesting game.
I want to ask one question. It might be kind of dumb, and I don't want you to give anything away, but with a player like Khalil Mack, can you double him on the offensive line? Do you often find yourself sliding protection to make sure he's double blocked, or is that not really a thing?
Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away, but you do what you can. There's still 10 other guys out there who are also paid, and so that's the hard part, and that's why you want a guy like that on your team, because you know that even with a double team, sometimes he can be a game wrecker, and then certainly when he's one-on-one, they're going to like that matchup. So, we do what we can, but at the same time, we got to ask our guys to hold up and do their part, and we've got to be smart with everything. With me holding on to the football, I got to be ready to move around and get the ball out and feel the rush well and see the field well. And we got to have receivers getting open so it's not taking too long. And, the whole gamut, we got to get everybody going in the same direction to be able to have success against a great player and a great defense like that.
We talk on this show a lot about red zone, third down percentage, and turnover margin. And as I was looking for that Bears stuff, I noticed a couple things. I noticed that the Vikings defense has now gotten their third down percentage up to 25.7. Let me blow your mind. Not only is that first in the league, the second place defense is 8 percentage points behind that. Wow. The second place one. So that's really impressive, especially after how we started the season. But I also noticed that you guys are only +1 in turnover differential, which is still positive. But would you agree that that's maybe the most important thing going forward for these last games to get that higher?
Absolutely. I think when you look at why we're 5-3-1 and why we're not better, I think you could point to the fact that we're only +1 in turnovers as a team. If that was +5, +6, +10, it would be hard not to be, 7-2 or whatever, because turnovers do tell the story. And I know that one year when the Panthers went 15-1 and went all the way to the Super Bowl, their turnover differential was something ridiculous. It was way up there, I think in the 20s. So good teams, winning teams, their defenses turn the ball over, their offenses protect the football, and it leads to victories. And in the second half, we talk about writing the story these next 4 games. I'm sure we'll sit back here after these 4 games and point to that statistic as something that did write the story.
Well, the season's right there for the taking for the Vikings. That's the positive. The positive news is you're sitting right where you want to sit. You control your own destiny. So let's go out there and win some of these games. I want to win so badly.
I'm excited. Sunday Night Football is Soldier Field, division game against a great Bears team. They're first in the division, great players. What more do you want? this is why you come to the NFC North. This is why you play in the NFL, for these kind of opportunities. Let's go, and
let's go.
It'll be a charged atmosphere. We're excited. I grew up in Chicago, so it's fun to always go back there and play. It's a bit of a, much like playing the Lions, much like playing the Packers, it's just a moment where you say, wow, again, as we started this episode talking about how blessed we are and how I'm living a dream, you want to talk about, living a dream, playing at Soldier Field on Sunday Night Football in the NFC North for the division, try to get first place in the division. I mean, I'm living a dream, and I don't take that lightly, and I'll be excited come Sunday night.
It's pretty cool. Skol Vikings. So for everyone in closing, one last thing. Next week, we hope to have a Victory Monday episode. Like normal, no more time on Monday. The following week, I'll be back in Minnesota, so we are probably going to set up another guest, so just a little teaser there. So be listening. And we love you guys. Thanks for listening to the Officialize Experience. Kirk, thanks for your time, and let's go get some victories.
Awesome. Let's go. Skol Vikes.